2, perhaps there is some hope that freedom could be saved even up to the response to the crimes of September 11th. But that watershed of 12 years ago, there was no turning back. The world that Thomas Paine dreaded, the thing he feared the most, and the tyranny that he had dedicated his life to opposing was upon us. Today, successes like Edward Snowden are not writing monographs for us to read, but languishing in sanctuary in Russia of all places. The brilliant innovators and freedom fighters of our time are no longer welcome, even inside our own borders. In the very country that fought a revolution for the rights of the individual against the state. Why, then, this isn't astonishing monograph called Common Sense censored? If the power elites want to preserve their rule, they probably should consider it. For it is impossible to read this and not get the message. Now it is time. There is no more waiting. As with other classic writings on this level, you discover things about it each reading, material you might have not noticed or have been prepared for in the past. This time I was overwhelmed with the sense that he is speaking to us right now, trying to embolden us to see what is going around us right now. I experienced the right hot rhetoric of this piece. While American politics has descended into depths, the government remains shut down for all services anyone might actually use, but fully functional in its all-oppressive apparatus. We still pay taxes and obey regulators, but now the illusion that we are getting something of our money is stripped away. The world charade seems designed to remind us just how much we need and love the feds, but the real effect has been the opposite. Yet it is another sign that we might be living in the days of the Leviathan. The once indispensable institution, the reputed cornerstone of civilization, the grand structure of story and song, is looking more ridiculous by the day. Every service that has been shut down could be easily abolished or privatized. The remaining supposedly essential parts of the state, the police, security, taxing, regulating, military powers, are actually the most damaging parts of the regime, the ones that bring massive human suffering where it is completely unnecessary. Meanwhile, right now, private enterprises continues on its merry way, providing goods and services to the whole population and doing its best to ignore Washington antics. In other words, the net result of this shutdown is to make the anarchy government fears appear like an ever more beautiful possibility. But wait, isn't anarchy something we should fear? The worst of all worlds? Well, maybe not. A world without impositions of Washington would be initially disorientating, but the disruption itself could yield a new and better world. Society would continue to work and even thrive. After all, it is not the government that makes our lives wonderful, but each other, cooperating through a free exchange and human association of our own choosing. Thomas Paine speaks directly to the issue. Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, but it is necessary evil, in its worst state an intolerable one. For when we suffer or we are exposed the same miseries by a government which we might expect in a country without government, our calamity is heightened by reflecting that we furnish by the means by which we suffer. With government and the speaking generally sinking in popularity, it makes more sense to shut the whole thing down. Privatize the essential services, sell off to the monuments and zoos, the tap private enterprises for everything else, return all money to the taxpayers, and be done with it. This is what common sense suggested be done in 1776. Contrary to myth, Paine wasn't actually calling for war and bloodshed. He was calling for kicking the bastards out of their perches of power. He wanted to end British rule. This doesn't mean doesn't necessarily mean war. It can happen peacefully if the rules just walk away. We might call this Paine plan. The Democrats are denouncing this as rise of anarchist ideology in the Republican Party. Would that were so. The truth is that Republicans are just as wedded to the power apparatus as the Democrats. They just feel a greater attachment to some parts over others. I like this so far. I'm sorry, gang. That means, in the end, it is up to us. We should be all working every day in every way to detach ourselves from dependence on our oppressors. We can make freedom that the 18th century intellectual giants like Paine dreamed of an actual reality. Many of us, if not most of us, are doing this every day. In Paine's writings, you find a revolutionary idea that he was correct in thinking has descended on the world for the first time. It was an idea of liberalism, classical liberalism to be more precise. His rendering of this idea was particularly radical, but at its core, it summed up the views of generation that really did set the world free. The idea was that society needed no overarching ruler to give it direction. It needed no official church to make it religious. No king was necessary to give society decorum or to manage relations with other nations. It needed no central plan to spell out a list of priorities. It was tempted to wholly recast the way people thought about how the world works. And the people believe it would work. Why? Because they saw it all around them. The world of the colonies was made by Americans, not by some far-off, distant, deeply ignorant ruler of ermine robes living in London. In the same way we look at our own lives and we see and experience beautiful things, but think of it. How much of what we love was actually built by the politicians, bureaucratic armies, and the central planners within the Beltway? There are disposable ones. How enduring is the message of Paine? Listen to these words. Oh, yea, that love mankind, yea, that dare oppose not only the tyranny, but the tyrant stand forth. Every spot of the old world is overrun with oppression. Freedom hath been hunted round the globe. Asia and Africa have long expelled her. Europe regards her like a stranger, and England hath given her warning to depart. Oh, receive the fugitive and prepare in the time at the asylum for mankind. That was a quote unquote. Sincerely, Jeffrey Tucker. Well, my friends, he is absolutely right. And I have read Thomas Paine, a lot of his writings, Common Sense, Rights of Man, Age of Reason. Hopefully I'm going to purchase this book called A Complete Writings of Thomas Paine. He was an impact player. He was considered the info warrior of the 18th century. I know I read he was a terrible battle soldier, but when it comes to the pen, he blew people's minds. And that during that time, the King of England wanted to lynch him. Because he had that, he supported, will always say, demoniac resistance. Always pay homage to this guy. He was maybe a nut job, but knew what he was talking about. That got people thinking. So, I will add a link too about Thomas Paine as soon as possible. So I got some things I'm going to be doing. And on a final note, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And you can please send your comments on my Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, Google Plus, and Spreaker. You criticize me, it'd be cool. Give me compliments. Send me information too. That'd be awesome. It'd be great. Honorable discussions are great. And that's all for now. And once again, thanks for listening. And as always, demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate society. Thank you for your time. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.